Hey everybody, welcome to another video review. This is a Master Replicas Certificate of Authenticity. It's a pretty rare one, pretty special. By its size, you know that it's going to be obviously a vehicle of some type. And I wanted to, talk about the history behind it. This is one of my stories, and I think it's a reasonably interesting one for those of you, who are into that sort of stuff. So sit down, relax, and let me tell you a tale of woe, and I guess a tale of some fabulous good fortune. It starts probably, I think, over 10 years ago, at least 10 years ago, by my memory. And back in those days, I didn't collect master replicas. But even if you don't collect master replicas, there are a couple of things that company made that kind of captures the imagination of any type of collector. And even if you're not into master replicas, you are aware of those pieces. A few examples: the Darth Vader lightsabers. They kind of capture the imagination. Darth Vader is one of the most iconic villains in cinema history, and his lightsaber, especially the one from Star Wars: A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back, are just iconic. So I was interested in that. And then, of course, you had the AT-AT Walker from Empire Strikes Back, and then the Millennium Falcon. And so at the time, even though I wasn't a big master replicas collector, a part of me still wanted to look into those pieces because I was also a very big Star Wars fan. So I did manage to get my hands on a Darth Vader Empire and a Darth Vader Return of the Jedi signature edition lightsaber. I never did, at that time, get a dual signature version because laughably, I thought that $2,000 on eBay was too much for it at that time, over 10 years ago. But I would occasionally, do eBay searches just to kind of see what was out there. And during one of those searches, I found a signature edition Millennium Falcon. Now, there's a lot to talk about for that Millennium Falcon. It's without doubt one of the greatest prop replicas ever made, one of the greatest licensed prop replicas ever made. Even at that time, in the early 2000s, when this was produced by Master Replicas, Harrison Ford was already notorious for not really wanting to sign Star Wars memorabilia. His signature already, even back then, was very sought after and pricey because of that reluctance. And so, when Master Replicas created this amazing, prop of the shooting model of the Empire Strikes Back Millennium Falcon, and then had Harrison Ford sign a signature plaque, that's like, man, that was like Grail territory, okay, back then. And the price reflected it. I think it was $2,000. You have to check me on that, but I think it was like $2,000 even back then, which was a good, $700-800 more than the limited edition Millennium Falcon, which wasn't signed. And they only have 500 of those signatures from Harrison Ford. And so, price for that Millennium Falcon, even back then in the 2010s, 11s, it was high, man. It was high. But I saw this on eBay, and I looked into it, and there were a couple of things wrong with it. I exchanged information with the guy. It was a lot easier to do back then on eBay. And we kind of had an email conversation. And the situation was this. This was a signature edition Millennium Falcon, but there had been a flood or some sort of water issue in the guy's home. It had flooded, and unfortunately the box that the Falcon was in was one of the casualties. Now obviously the styrofoam wasn't a big deal, but the outer brown shipper was completely destroyed. He had to throw it away. And for some utterly inexplicable, weird, odd reason, he had left the certificate of authenticity. He had left this in the box. And of course, because it was outside the styrofoam, the water went through the brown shipper and then also impacted this as well. So this provided some protection from the water, but not all. And so when he showed me the certificate, it was pretty badly water damaged. I mean, it was streaks. This was warped. And then when you opened the certificate, there's parts of it where you couldn't even read the description because of the water issue. But it had all of the inserts, it had all of that. And the picture of Harrison Ford signing it was still basically intact. And so due to all of these issues, he was willing to let it go for a significant discount. And at that time, I don't remember exactly what I paid for it, but I do remember my personality or my priorities back then. And I know for a fact I wouldn't have paid a huge amount of money for something. Back then, even $1,000 was just, a really, really big deal for me, And so I like to think that I didn't spend any more than $2,000, including shipping, which if you know how big the Falcon's box is, you'll realize that that was no small price. And so I got the signature edition Millennium Falcon for an incredible deal. And it absolutely, had the signature plaque by Harrison Ford, had the other plaque. The ship itself was great. All the lights worked. I put it together. It was amazing. The only thing that was, sort of a bummer was the paperwork. Now, back then, because I was not a master replicas aficionado, I could really care less about the paperwork. And so I just, got this water damaged certificate and I put it aside, never thought about it. I looked at it, I was curious, it looked nice, and I threw it away on the side. Didn't think much of it. I put it together all my other paperwork. But then over the intervening 11, 12 years, I became more of a master replicas enthusiast. For those of you who follow my channel, you'll know that I basically collected or obtained all of the master replicas lightsabers, for instance. And so on that journey, things like certificates of authenticity, things like even the original brown shipper, terms like CIB, unopened, all these terms became more important to me. And so as I kind of completed my lightsaber journey, I did begin to look back on a few choice pieces I wanted to add to the collection. I didn't want to stray too far afield from my focus because it's a slippery slope, and frankly, I don't have the time or the space or the inclination to go crazy on that. But for instance, I obtained a signature edition thermal detonator because I wanted Carrie Fisher's signature. And I'm still on the hunt for a signature edition AT-AT Walker. And my thoughts began to turn toward that damaged certificate of authenticity. And I began to, keep my eyes open and start inquiring about a signature edition Millennium Falcon certificate of authenticity. Now, obviously, this is a very long shot because most people who own the signature edition, it goes without saying, would never ever want to part with it. And broken signature edition sets are very, very few and far in between. But I did manage over time to find someone who didn't, it was weird. I mean, initially, I had bought a EFX Reveal lightsaber from this person. He's local. And then I had bought a few more pieces over the intervening 6-7 months from him. And I asked him what else he got, which is, a very normal question between collectors. And he mentioned he did have a signature edition Millennium Falcon. He seemed pretty adamant that he would never sell it. It's one of his favorite pieces. So then I asked him, what would it take to get this certificate of authenticity away from him? It's pristine. And his initial response was just like a categorical, that's impossible. Cannot do that. No way, no way. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I offered an initial price of $1,000. $1,000 for this piece of paper, which, is kind of insane. But it was on the table. It was out there. He said no. And then over time, I kept, just kind of reminding him. He was like, no way, no way. And then finally, I got a text from him. He was apparently in some need of funds, and he offered $1,700. Now, normally, I'm prone to haggle, bargain, whatever you want to call it. But the opportunity to get a complete certificate of authenticity from a signature Millennium Falcon is essentially like impossible. I mean, maybe it isn't, and maybe I was just too impatient. But you've got to think that this type of scenario almost never occurs. Okay, I think just earlier somebody had been offering to sell a signature plaque with Harrison Ford's signature, the signature plaque of the Falcon, and the paperwork for $2,500, okay, US. But before I could inquire about that, somebody else had actually bought everything and the actual limited edition Falcon in all one set, and they bought it together. That's the sort of scenario where you would even have a chance at something like this, okay? So this coming from someone who didn't really even want to sell this certificate, and at a moment of almost weakness, he decided to do it. I just felt like I could not afford to haggle too much. I just said yes. So it's a stunning amount of money to pay for a certificate of authenticity. I mean, $1,700 was the agreed upon price. But, this is a very unique set of circumstances. So we agreed to meet. And because it's local, he didn't even have to have any fees. I was going to pay him with a bank transfer. And then literally the day of the transaction, he, texted me and wanted to back out. He just couldn't do it. What caused that was me texting him a photo of my water damage certificate. And I kind of wanted to remind him that, hey, I don't care too much about all the other little inserts, but there is a specific insert, which is a limited warranty on one side, but the other side is actually telling you, how to put the Falcon together. And I had to have that. And I said, that my water damaged one has a water damaged insert. And I just wanted to make sure that everything was on the up and up, because this is a $1,700 transaction, which is kind of crazy, right? Well, he didn't respond to that, but he did respond to my picture, and I guess it just reminded him of how awesome it was. I had a picture of Harrison Ford signing it on my water damage certificate, and he wanted to back out. He just couldn't do it. So I was like, okay, I wasn't too surprised. But he would just kind of say, yeah, it was just really, really hard to, to part with it. And so in desperation, I said to him, okay, I said, why don't I do a trade? And in return for you selling me your certificate of authenticity, I'll give you my water damaged certificate of authenticity. So you'll at least have something. And so, he decided at that point, okay, he'll take that. That was the compromise. And so instead of just outright buying it, we swapped. But I did shave just a little bit, like $50 off the price of $16.50, since he was getting another version, no matter how damaged. Now, because we switched, I can't show you how damaged my version was. But it's, again, it's pretty bad. I don't feel like there was much value for that. But in return, I got this. And so I wanted to just kind of show this off, because I don't think there's many YouTube videos of a signature Millennium Falcon. I'll have to check to be sure. And certainly none that kind of goes over the paperwork in as loving detail as I do. So this is a big certificate. You can see on the back, the signature edition Star Wars 30th anniversary logo. And it is indeed the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. I again love the gold, accent. And then very, very good quality, glossy, thick paper. And then it even gives you the date. Harrison Ford, October 12th, 2006 was when he signed it. So that tells you when this was released. Signature edition Millennium Falcon, Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. And here it is. That picture is worth probably $1,000 in and of itself. Look at that. Harrison Ford signing those plaques next to the Falcon. Look how happy he is to be doing it. But I think if you've watched some of my other videos, I've mentioned how this is like my favorite part of those certificates, of those signature edition certificates, is the picture of the actor doing the signing. And I think without exception, I think all 11 of the signature edition lightsabers does show a picture of the actor signing. And why not? He's there signing, or she's there signing. Just take a picture, it's super easy, and incorporate it into the the certificate. Why can't EFX do something that simple? It's, kind of ridiculous actually, think about it. So anyways, this is the actual certificate. It opens. It gives you this wealth information. Again, it's a 3-part opening, but in this case, it's actually more than 3 parts. It's actually 4 parts, if you can believe that. So I'm going to try to showcase this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to start by just sort of taking out all of the inserts, and then we'll close it again. So, as usual, you have a Master Replicas. I think this is a registration? Yeah, this is a registration card. And this is the Collectors Society card right here. It's like some warning about the electricity. I'll just sort of scroll through it so you can probably read that if you wish. I think it's because it does actually have the lights for this. That's kind of weird. You don't see this very often, but this is basically talking about how I guess part of his signature fee for the Master Replica Signature Edition is being donated to Conservation International. So that's really cool. You can see Harrison Ford's picture and then all these, pictures of conservation. I'll scroll up. So that's pretty cool. I have to see if this company is even around. But I had no idea Harrison Ford was such a big proponent of conservation. But it's really cool that he donated a part of his signature fee from the, Millennium Falcon Signature Edition to this organization. And this is what I'm talking about. On the one side, of course, is the limited warranty, which, what's there to say? There's a ton of paper, it's like the definition of fine print, right? But then at the end of that, they actually sort of start getting into instructions on how to clean the mirror, which is kind of crazy. And if you flip it around, there's more. It kind of tells you how to properly install it, take it out. It tells you how to put it on the base. It warns you that it's extremely heavy. You need literally 3 people to figure it out, 2 people to lift it, and a 3rd person to kind of guide the Falcon to the mounting post. Just absolutely insane. They talk to you about the angle. They scream at you not to force it and to adjust the angle of the Falcon to allow it to slide into place. Talks to you about the lighting effects. And then here's the hilarious thing: retain all the packaging in case you need to return your studio scale Millennium Falcon to master replicas. So this is just pretty crazy. I don't know what the 3 is referring to. Oh, well, that's because I'm an idiot. You actually open this thing up and they actually tell you how to, open it up. There's the one. Look at this insanity. So for those of you who don't have this, I'm scrolling it up so you can freeze frame it anytime you want. And you can actually read how you're supposed to put this thing together. That's page 1. And then here's page 2. This is just to get the cardboard aside. Tells you where everything is. And don't forget there's a radar dish and a spring. That spring is really important because without the spring, it doesn't light up. Apparently that spring is actually an electrical conductor. I don't know if you can read this part. It says, caution, install the spring around the electrical connector before you place your Millennium Falcon Studio Scale replica onto the mounting post. I can tell you that like an idiot, when I first got that thing, I didn't listen to any of that. And I actually, crazily, by myself, mounted the Falcon. Don't ask for more details than the idiocy of that. I actually tried to mount it by myself. I almost permanently damaged myself doing that. And then when it wouldn't light up, I went back to the instructions and read it, and then realized, of course, with horror, that I was supposed to put the spring. I didn't even know where the spring was. I had to go back to the styrofoam. I had to find the spring. And then I had to actually get my mom to help me because I didn't have any brothers or, whatever. I had a little had a daughter who was like literally 4 years old. I don't think my wife was home at the time. It was crazy. You know, my parents lived with me. And so, you know, I think she was at that time in her early 70s, not exactly Arnold Schwarzenegger by any stretch of the imagination, but she was able to just help me lift it off. I had to put the spring on, and then she helped me lift it and gently put it in place. So even though you needed 3 people, I managed to do it initially by myself, and then finally with literally my mom, my 70-year-old mom at the time, to do it. So there's my admission right there about that. All right, so what is this $1,700 certificate look like? Well, it looks like this. This is the first page. We're gonna open it up, and then I'm going to essentially zoom in so you get to read what they're talking about. You can read all of the background information on this amazing collectible and how they made it. You can freeze frame it and enjoy it all the way up. So that's page 1. And of course, this is the other side. This is what you would normally see on the back. This is all with a 4K camera, by the way. Again, if I move it at all, it will, you know, it will not upload in 4K. So I'm gonna go all the way down here again. The recreation of an icon. This is about as close as I can get. Hopefully you can still read it. And then I'm gonna sort of gently get the right distance so you can appreciate all of this stuff. And move on up. So you can read the entire thing. You can look at some of what went into creating this. They digitally scan all of this. And then of course, this is the actual certificate of authenticity from Harrison Ford. Look at how classy that is. You know, that the original MR stuff actually not only told you this was a signature edition, but actually gave you, you know, Harrison Ford's name. So it's like specific to this, you know? And then you have that gold seal. I'm sort of disappointed it didn't have Vogel's signature as well as the other guy. Would have been nice to have that. And then we will turn this way. This is the last page. I'm gonna try to get a little bit better view of this. The final paint job. Here's a picture of this. Back off a little bit so it can actually focus on the lettering. And then finally I will fold it together like this. I'm not even sure how it's, I think it's actually supposed to be folded like this, believe it or not. Yeah, I think it's actually supposed to be folded like this. So when you open it, you have Harrison Ford and you have the certificate. So there you go. Just goes to kind of show you how you do that. And then we'll put this back where it belongs. And this, these guys all together. And then we'll put this lovingly into its huge envelope. We'll slip it in. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the story behind why I needed to drop $1,650 on a piece of cardboard stock paper. And the situation that actually created that. So that's a pretty, in my opinion, crazy story. And I took the opportunity also to showcase that so you actually get a chance to, to read it, see what it looks like. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed that little piece of lore. Hope you enjoyed looking at this amazing signature edition certificate of authenticity. Probably one of the best out there. I hope someday to be able to do the same thing for the AT-AT Walker someday. But yeah, seeing Harrison Ford's signature and his picture is pretty awesome. I have now that one along with Carrie Fisher's, signing photo, and of course Mark Hamill's. So I have the trifecta. And it's pretty crazy that in order to get Harrison Ford, you have to obtain that signature edition Millennium Falcon to get his picture. Mark's is pretty easy. I mean, not easy, but he has at least 3 of them for the New Hope, Empire, and Return of the Jedi. And Carrie Fisher has 2. She's got the blaster and the thermal detonator. But Harrison Ford is a really, really hard one. So that's why I had to do what I had to do to get that. So now I guess you know the going rate for a nice, pristine, undamaged certificate of authenticity. Until next time, do take care.